My guest on this podcast is Mariam Radi. She's only been involved in property for less than 2 years. She's achieved some phenomenal results, doing some amazing projects, and just one of her projects, she's achieved a growth of 341% on a single property. We break down the numbers. We also talk about her journey as being a young Arab woman, getting involved in property in this country and only being here for 10 years. So let's jump straight into the podcast.
So I actually lost my mom to cancer in 2017. And from her, she kind of left a house in London for me and my brother as a source of income. I was third year uni, so I didn't know anything about property.
Yes.
And you think I sound like a Disney character now? Should have met me at third year uni. I was not somebody that you would take seriously at all. And she said, "Can I see the property?" And I was like, "Sure." I went on Google to show it to her on Google Maps, and I saw a link to the auction website, and the auction was in 2 days.
Oh, wow.
So I called Savills. And I informed what the history between the two properties, and I made a big old fuss about it. I'm a freeholder and I contest this and yada, yada, yada. They disclosed my letters of claim. Okay. It deterred away potential buyers, so I bought it for...
Mariam is somebody that's been involved in the property industry for less than 2 years, and just one project has achieved 341% increase in value. That's just phenomenal. And not only that, you've won 3 awards for that particular project, and we'll talk more about that in a short while. But let's talk about your bread and butter stuff, the kind of thing you do every day, like your HMOs. Talk us through one of your current projects right now.
Sure thing. Can I start by saying thank you for inviting me on this? I've been a huge fan of the podcast, and I think that you guys were almost at 100 episodes.
We are nearly there.
Which was really, I'm expecting an invite to the 100 episode party when it happens.
That as a live. We should do that as a live, not the team.
But as far as my day-to-day projects go, I do more residential to HMO. So I'm looking in non-Article 4 areas, focusing more on Zone 6, West London. Don't particularly like to dabble in Article 4, though I have before. I do have a couple of projects in the pipeline that are Article 4. Yeah. We just want the council to be as little as involved as possible. And with it being permitted development, we can just send the team in as soon as we've exchanged. I kind of work backwards when it comes to these projects. So I'll know how much a HMO is worth in this area, let's say 700. I know it costs about 150 to build it. And then that's how I calculate what the deposit should be and how high I could go. Yeah. This means that although we love to buy properties below market price, when you know what your exit value is and you have the numbers and the numbers do stack, it does mean I'm not above bidding or maybe going higher than the next person because I know that I'll make that back.
You know what it's worth to you.
Exactly, yeah. And I think that's the value in kind of working backwards. There have been times where people have bought properties that are, like one of my mentees bought a property that they thought was a deal because it was well below market price, but didn't really do the research and realize that it was listed that low because of structural damage that's going to cost a fortune to fix.
Right.
So we definitely hone in on our due diligence as much as possible.
And what does one of the typical HMOs look like? Who do you typically target as the tenant? Who do you create the product for, and what's that look like?
So I target professionals, and they're all en suites. They all have tea-making facilities and consumer units in the room, and this is like a common denominator amongst all of the rooms. The reason why we have tea-making facilities is because logistically it doesn't cost a lot to add these. It's a mini refrigerator and some cabinets. It allows them to keep their cutlery in the room. They can make their tea in the room. They're not fighting over milk and fridge and cheese space, and you'd be surprised, which they do argue about. And you can increase the rents on that specific room by, I want to say, almost £100 a month sometimes.
So it's like a studio room. It's kind of self-contained, but not fully.
Yeah, and it gives you more privacy. En suites, of course, and fitted wardrobes. This is because we just don't want them to be moving wardrobes around. Apart from that, the rooms are pretty minimalistic, so that it allows the tenants to decorate it the way that they like. They're all up to a high standard, and this is because I kind of learned early on in my career that if you have a property that is, let's say, subpar, you will pay the price in maintenance and in management and in time. So I'd rather put in the money and the time at the beginning, make sure that it's at a high standard, and then I'm saving myself on management fees and maintenance costs.
Yeah, we're a big fan of doing that when we take on a property to really gut it out pretty much back to its bare bones and recreate it pretty much like a brand new home. And that way, as you said, it just minimises maintenance and problems going forward. Otherwise, you're just constantly dealing with repairs and stuff because of some bad workmanship that might have been done in the past, or it's just getting on a bit age-wise. to avoid all that. So that makes sense.
I take it all back to brick. I've worked on projects before where I didn't do that, and I retained the electric circuits and the pipes. And then we started to have issues with the wiring and the plumbing. And obviously this means you have to now vacate the property in order to fix it, or you have to dig underground to find the faulty pipe. It was a nightmare. So now moving forward, everything is brand new.
Because something that will cost only a small amount of money at this stage, it costs a significant amount to try and rectify later on when people are living in it and stuff. It's all carpeted, plastered, painted, everything's done then at that point. What sort of typical size rooms do you look at, and how many rooms in a house? Is there a kind of a number that works really well for you?
So when we're not in Article 4, we can go up to 6 bedrooms. So typically that's what we do. We try to utilize the existing floor plan as much as possible. So if we can fit 6 single rooms, then we'll most likely do that in the existing floor plan. If we can't, only then will we go into the loft. So if I can do, 6 single rooms in the existing floor plan with no extension, more likely to do that rather than, 4 single rooms, 2 double, but then we need to extend. Just because it means that you can finish the property quicker and the development costs are lower. Plus they still rent pretty well. So,
and talking of rents, what sort of rents do you typically get for one of these rooms?
So if we're talking a single room, about 8 square meters, excluding the ensuite, you can get about, I want to say lower band, 750. But for us, we can maybe achieve about 730, 790 for it. And they go all the way up to 850. I've seen some that are about 900. Some of the much bigger ones where you can fit a sofa can go all the way up to 1,000. So there's definitely some
quite a range
there.
So you're probably about £4,500-5,000 per house because gross income that you're collecting.
Yeah, exactly. And the nice thing, what I love to do when I develop in London is you're not going to see the kind of property increase or demand the way that you do when you're directly next to a train that takes you into central London. I think that for us that live in the UK, or I live in London, you kind of lose the novelty of what that city actually is, and that people come from around the world to live there. I only moved to London about a year ago, and before I lived in the city, I really did kind of see it as like this amazing thing. When I was in Kuwait, I was like, London's like the most incredible city in the world, and I'd love to go there. Obviously now I've seen the mice on the underground, so I have a different perception. But the city really does kind of hold itself in that sense. So,
and it's a huge city as well.
Huge city. So when you have a property there, you're going to rent it. It's going to hold its value. The rents will increase. The property will increase, and so it's a safer market, I'd say.
And with a project like that, so what kind of end values are you achieving? What's the kind of end finished project value?
So we're seeing between 700 to 750. So 710, 715. The rents are somewhat fixed. So we do want to say we can get about 800 on average for a room. So even if you get a lower evaluation at the end, which we don't always do, it just means that your cash flow will be higher. So either way, we put a lot of emphasis on the evaluation when we're getting a bridge at the beginning, because it determines everything. But at the end of the project, we tell them, you know what, if you don't get that high evaluation, don't worry, it just means more money in your pocket every month. So,
and with a purchase price for something like that, what sort of price are you typically paying to buy these properties?
So because it costs anywhere between, I want to say, 130 to 180 to do up, 180 being we're doing a loft conversion and extension and whatnot. I want to say if you can buy it for around 400, you're good. 400, you're spending, let's say 150, 550, you're in on an exit of 700. You're doing okay. You can pull out.
So for somebody who's watching this or listening to this and maybe not following exactly what we're meaning, so you're buying what's typically is a family house for around the £400,000 mark. You are spending around £150,000 thereabouts, depending on the property, to create a 6-person HMO with all en suites and little tea making facilities within them, which will generate you probably maybe £60,000 a year, if not more, and you have a final valuation of the property around £700,000. And what that means is you can borrow against the end value to pretty much pull most of your money back out to go again into another project. That's the model, yeah?
That's the American dream.
Yes. And it's a model many people pursue, and many people get it wrong as well, because they miss so many things. There's so many intricacies in doing something like that, and they have to do it right. and they make mistakes. So it's when you've got a model that works, you just want to replicate it again and again. So even starting something like that, even if you're using bridging finance, you need a sizable amount of money to start with.
Yeah.
So tell us about how you got started with that. You've heard the phrase, your network is your net worth, and you'll also hear it in this particular podcast as well. That's because people in property recognize the importance of being connected with other people. Property is a people business, and that's the reason I've been running a networking event for over a decade now. Each and every month we bring like-minded people together, an opportunity for you to come along and meet some of those people and also learn from other people on the stage, learn from myself as well. So make sure you book onto the next meeting. We're on the third Tuesday of every month in Birmingham. Now let's get back to the podcast.
So I actually lost my mom to cancer in 2017. And from her, she kind of left a house in London for me and my brother as a source of income. I was third year uni, so I didn't know anything about property.
Yes.
And you think I sound like a Disney character now? You should have met me at third year uni. I was not somebody that you would take seriously at all. Tenant didn't pay rents, had to evict them. And my introduction to property was terrible. I just kept thinking to myself, this is not what I want to do. But then I graduated and I got a job as a paralegal.
Studying law.
Yeah. And then after COVID, you had that huge spike in inflation. And I saw my mealy little paralegal pay rise didn't match inflation. And I kind of looked back at that property in London that I'd hated for so long and saw that its value had increased to match inflation. And then light bulb.
Yeah.
Real estate is a tremendous inflation hedge, provides you security in a way that 9-to-5s don't. And I started to look at that, what my mom had left to, with more fonder eyes. And that was the pivotal moment where I decided, okay, I'm going to sell this property. And it had a lot of significance because it was something my mom had left for me and my brother. So the stakes were really high. I needed to make sure that I quadrupled its value and I invested in. I needed to do it for my brother, who's 5 years younger than me, and relied on this as well. And put a lot of pressure on myself to do something well with it.
Yes.
And the rest is history.
Wow.
Just kept reusing that money over and over again.
So with, your background is originally from the Middle East. You spent time in Kuwait and then in the UK. How long have you been in the UK?
I moved here when I was like 18. So 2016.
Okay, so maybe 9 years ago, 10 years ago. 10 years ago. And there's quite a lot to accomplish in that short time frame, particularly only been involved in property, less than 2 years. How have you found trying to break into this market, not necessarily having the knowledge and stuff? How have people perceived you and estimated your abilities?
I think that different people perceive me in, I want to say, different ways. So banks at the beginning loved me. I was young and they could hit me with a really high rate and I had really strong collateral. So I was their best friend for a while. My tenants did not take me seriously and didn't appreciate that somebody like me had now taken over a property to manage. So I got some backlash from that and people undermining my authority. And then when I say people in the industry, I'd like to say mixed reviews. So when people first meet me, I am the kind of person I'm very quick to say, like, I'm a small fish in a big pond. I want to absorb and learn a lot. And I think that can sometimes give the impression that I perhaps don't know anything about the industry.
Yeah.
Then people get to know me more and they realize, no, I'm just somebody who is very passionate about what I do and turns into a sponge when I'm around people that are doing more than me. And I want to absorb as much knowledge as possible.
Yeah.
So I would have to say, I'm not quite sure what the perception is. Comment below. Imagine the comments were like, the perception is she's terrible.
And what made you choose HMOs? Often it's a path that many people find themselves on eventually. Very few people tend to start with that path, and especially those that may not necessarily have had a property background in the past. So what was the thinking behind, actually, this is the route that I need to go down?
I actually, when I first started, like post-COVID, I just flipped terraced houses in Bolton, actually.
Bolton?
Yeah. Okay. So the market helped me out a lot because the market increased.
Yeah.
And I just crunched the numbers on what would generate the most income. I knew that I wanted to move to London eventually. I knew the novelty of London.
Yeah.
And the reality is that HMO can provide you more cash flow and more security. If a HMO, if I have one room that's empty, it's true I still have running costs, but I still have an income from it. It's unlikely that the entire property will be empty. Whereas if you have a buy-to-let and that house is vacant,
Yes.
and your mortgage is not going to stop for anyone. So it was also that security. And yeah, that's pretty much how it started.
And when you were at university, were you living in a HMO, student accommodation at the time, or?
I wasn't. So my mom, when we moved to the UK because she went to Christie's Hospital for treatment. So we kind of got a place close to the hospital. So I spent my uni years with her.
Yes. Yeah, I remember when I was at university and sitting down once with my fellow housemates trying to work out how much money our landlord makes. And we thought, this is something we should be doing. We never did anything at the time, but we had the bright idea about trying to work out how much our landlord's probably making at the time. And that was our first curiosity in HMOs many, many years ago at that time. So let's talk about this project that you've created, 341% increase in value. That's phenomenal. And, you've achieved some great awards on that as well. And I remember because I was on the judging panel on some of those awards, we were just speaking earlier off camera. I said, your name kept coming up again and again.
You must have got sick of me, like, oh, not her again.
I was saying, it was interesting that actually, this person's clearly doing something right because their name keeps coming up on various awards. Tell us about that project.
Sure. So when I'd made the decision that I'm going to do real estate, I knew that I wanted, like everything in my life, I'm going to do something, I need to do it really well. But I was still a bit cautious in going into a development of a HMO. And I kind of told myself, if I go for a buy-to-let, it might be easier. A buy-to-let that's below market price, I can add value to it. It's making money as soon as I buy it. So that was my consensus. I was 22, 23 at the time. Okay. So I thought I'd play it safe. And I was looking at HMOs in London, and I came across a 15-bed HMO in Greenwich. Oh. And it was listed below market price. So I went to view it. And the woman that was showing us the property around, I remember getting there, it was December, and I was going to Winter Wonderland straight after. So I had my stupid little Winter Wonderland outfit with a big fur coat and my two little cousins, and everybody else was in suits and an iPad. So nobody took me seriously. Not that I blame them. Walked away from that, put in an offer, it didn't get accepted. And then again, I'm still monitoring Rightmove and Zoopla, and I kept seeing this property come back over and over again. At this point, I think we had we're just coming off of COVID. I think we had the second wave of COVID. Right. We're not quite out the pandemic, but we're not really in it again. Yeah. So she was eager to get rid of the property, and Liz Truss, I think, had just come into power.
Right, okay.
So I put in an offer of 80,000 below market price, and she accepted after 3 failed sales. So I got into trying to get finance, which was a nightmare. I go into the property to see it again. She hasn't hired a solicitor for about 2 months. So I go to meet her in person, and I knew that there was a red flag.
She agreed your offer, 80,000
below market price.
Okay.
Which is a good thing, because you're like, oh, I got it cheap. But then it's like,
she's not progressing with the legal.
No, and then you're kind of asking yourself, well, why isn't it selling? Why is she accepting a price that's so low? So I went to meet her, and that's when I discovered the red flag in the basement. She owns the freehold to the hairdressing salon next door, and she was illegally renting out the basement of the hairdressing salon as one of her HMO rooms.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So
nicked a room.
She nicked a room.
Yeah.
And she was claiming adverse possession. Now, this is something I was familiar with my legal background.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with it?
Yeah. So adverse possession, you're claiming ownership of something you didn't purchase or was given to you, that because you're using it for a period of time, you say, well, this is mine now.
Bravo. Yes, that's exactly it. And the reason why that exists is because in common law, we don't like it when properties are left vacant. If you leave an empty house, it's going to attract vermin, trespassers, will bring down the property value of the properties next door to it. So they want it regenerated into the economy. If you live in it and make use of it, you're paying bills, that's money getting generated into the economy, you're taking care of it. It's better for the country to have properties that are utilized rather than empty. So that's where adverse possession comes out from. Although it's not easy to prove.
Yes.
You have to have 10 consecutive years of occupation, a defined border. You have to prove blatant occupation. You can't hide people's properties and then claim adverse possession, in case people get any ideas. And I just didn't think that she was going to win adverse possession. But I looked at the leasehold of the hairdressing salon and I realized it had 50 years left on it.
Okay.
And it'd been vacant for about 2 decades. And I thought, realistically, are they going to fight for this room? It's better for them to just sell it. It's better for me to buy it.
Yeah.
So I said to the lady, if you
buy the room or the whole the salon?
Buy the leasehold.
Oh, right. Okay.
And then surrender it to myself. So I said to her, throw in the freehold for free and I will resume with the sale.
Yes.
And she did it. She threw in the freehold for free. But this is why
for her, it was just a case, I'm just getting rid of this problem.
Was like,
from her perspective.
Up with it.
Yeah.
But the thing is, even if she didn't throw in the freehold, I would have been legally responsible anyways. That's why you need good lawyers.
Yes.
So I got the freehold and then I set out to acquire the leasehold.
Okay.
I realized that the owner of the leasehold was in prison and his assets seized by debt recovery.
Right.
Because he'd declared bankruptcy. He'd borrowed a tremendous amount of money that he couldn't pay back.
Yeah.
That can become a criminal offense, actually, if you're not careful. So again, he didn't care. Debt recovery. Well, see, now I was in a new issue. Debt recovery wanted to sell it for as much as possible, and I wanted to buy it for as cheap as possible. So what could I do that would make sure that I deter away potential buyers? I reviewed the lease. I identified all of the issues in it, all of the ways in which they had violated the lease. I didn't talk about the little room that we were illegally renting, or decided I was going to keep that hush-hush. And I drafted 7 letters of claim.
Wow.
I felt morally okay because I was dealing with a bank.
Yes.
And I sent this out to them. The reason why I drafted 7 is because I could have drafted 1 with 7 bullet points and any lawyer that saw my letters would have just not really taken it that seriously, knew that it could be condensed into 1. But your average person wanting to buy property will see 7 letters of claim, kind of get freaked out. It has a different impact than just 1. And
if they're trying to sell, then they have to notify that we've got these 7 claims going on. Okay, cool.
Legal responsibility transfers with ownership. And I put them an offer of 100,000 to buy them out. They didn't just ignore my offer. They didn't even acknowledge me at all. And I spent hours on those letters of claim. They didn't acknowledge me, and they put it up on auction. They didn't tell me, they should have because I'm the freeholder. I was coincidentally in a cafe with my friend explaining the story, and she said, "Can I see the property?" And I was like, "Sure." I went on Google to show it to her on Google Maps, and I saw a link to the auction website, and the auction was in 2 days.
Oh, wow.
So I called Savills, and I informed them of the history between the 2 properties, and I made a big old fuss about it. I'm a freeholder and I can test this and yada, yada, yada. They disclosed my letters of claim. It deterred away potential buyers, so I bought it for 96,000.
Oh, excellent.
And then I spent 40 on it.
Yeah. So what do you think it was worth if it didn't have the issues?
The HMO or
the salon?
With 50 years left on it, to be honest with you, I leasehold, it didn't have much income. I want to say, I don't know, it's hard to tell, to be honest. Like on 150 maybe.
Okay. So even at the 96, it was still a good price.
Yeah.
But because of all the other things going on, it worked perfectly well for you.
Surrendered the lease to myself, so now it's freehold.
Yeah.
1-bedroom flat, 75 square meters.
Nice.
A valuation of 425.
Wow. Okay. Fantastic. That's why there's substantial increase in value. Yeah. So I guess with problems, that's where the biggest opportunities sometimes are found. When we think about how do we make money from property, well, you're either going to buy it cheap in the first place, which is what you did.
Or identify a problem with it.
Yeah, you found a problem and you think, I can fix this problem. Because let's face it, some problems aren't fixable. You found a problem and you think, I can fix it as well. And a big portion of problems can just be legal problems in the paperwork and how things are set up, as you've found that to your advantage of how you can fix that. And then there's adding value, improving it, which you've converted it to a residential unit. And the third way, you just sit on it for over time and it will appreciate in value as well. So nice. And I can see how the awards were justified that you won. So in terms of project, we were talking off camera. You're telling me about another project you're doing that's 3,000 square foot as well. Tell me more about that one.
This one is like, I think as developers, we get a bit attached to our development.
A little bit.
And we have ones that are our favorite, that we love. This has priority. This is like my favorite child. The reason why I love it is because I could get really creative with the floor plan.
Yeah.
But it's in Hillingdon. And for anybody that knows Hillingdon is notorious for rejecting planning permission.
Right.
Hillingdon has Heathrow Airport, and you'd think that there's no correlation, but they already feel like there's a lot of damage to the environment already because of the fumes that come up from the airport.
Right.
So they're quite heavy on garden and spaces and just maintaining the greenery in the borough, which you kind of understand.
Yeah.
But this also means that they're very strict about extensions. So typically permitted development allows you to go back 6 meters undetached. 8, Hillingdon only lets you go back 4.
Oh, wow.
This, on the one hand, it means that every time you submit for 4, they will give it to you, where the other boroughs will evaluate it. But it also means you're kind of capped at 4. So we did a wraparound 2-story extension. Most of it was to the rear, you couldn't see it from the front, and it got rejected. But
Wow.
I reviewed the planning policies myself, and I drafted the floor plans, and I knew that we were well within our rights to submit this. And saying that a borough does not like developments is infinitely appealable.
Yeah.
So everybody that saw my proposal, knowing it's Hillingdon, kind of looked at what we were trying to do, immediately told me that I wasn't going to get it. Every single person. I've spoken to multiple architects. They told me I'm wasting my time, wasting my money. But I thought, okay, I couldn't have gotten it that.
And they're saying that because you've already been refused. So they're saying you're not going to get.
That's the weird thing, right? Because it was like, none of you guys were this confident when we were in planning, but now everybody's like, we knew this would happen.
Yeah.
But I kind of understand where they're coming from, because I look on the planning portal and it's just refusal for
Right.
things much simpler than what we were trying to do.
Okay.
But I thought I couldn't have gotten it this wrong. When you appeal, it goes to an independent third party in Bristol. So realistically, it doesn't really matter what Hillingdon thinks of it anymore.
Yes.
It's now my word against theirs in front of somebody else. We appealed anyways. And because they rejected it on the basis of they didn't believe that the development would blend in the area.
So it's a subjective opinion of
Very
the planner.
subjective. And we put in our appeal that essentially if you were to go down this road a year from now after we built it, would you be able to tell that we did anything unorthodox? If we haven't disrupted the je ne sais quoi, you can't tell that anything's out of place.
Yeah, it doesn't stand out like a sore thumb.
Exactly. So our appeal got passed.
Oh, wow.
So excited.
Yeah.
I went up to every single person. I was like, told you so, told you so. Had a little list of people, went knocking on their door. Remember when you told me? Yeah. No, but I'm really...
But it just goes to show that you're prepared to go to lengths that most people don't. They give up quite quickly. And the biggest opportunities in property are through perseverance and pushing back and challenging and finding solutions to problems, and sometimes quite big problems or problems that people perceive can't be fixed. But you were prepared to go through that to say, we're going to find a solution for this to make it work. And I'm guessing that adds substantial value to the property as well.
Oh, so much. And also, if you look at what planning policies are, what permitted development rights are, go on the council's website, see what their 5-year plan is. If you're adhering to everything, then you should be allowed to build.
Yes.
Because what is the point of having all of these rules if the council can just reject your application because they didn't like it?
Yes.
Then there's no precedent, which was another one of my arguments. So I said, I'm following your own rules.
And how long did it take you to go through the appeal process? So once it got refused, you submitted an appeal.
It took about 2.5 months.
Okay, that's good.
Of depression.
That's really good. Yeah.
Then we got it.
Yeah. But you got there in the end, so that's the key thing.
Yeah, I didn't expect to get it though.
Okay.
So when we received planning, we were already working on other projects, and the builders were tied up because of how many people had told us that we just wouldn't get it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, now actually
everybody kind of moved on to other things.
Yeah.
This is not going to happen.
So we have planning, but I actually don't think we're going to start for another 6 months.
Okay.
Because everybody's just tied up on other things. But it's okay.
Yeah, you had 3 years anyway to start.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, that's good. And so tell us about what else do you have in your pipeline? What other kind of projects are you thinking about, and what kind of projects would you like to do in the next year or two?
Oh, I really love commercial to residential. Adore them. Because I'm a huge fan of permitted development. If I can utilize it any way that I can. Yes. The reason why I like commercial to residential is because the requirements, in my opinion, you can fight me on this if you disagree, are much less strict than a HMO. Because with the HMO, you have the room sizes and then you have the licensing that needs to go into it. Whereas commercial to residential, you need to get your transport links, your natural light test, which, I mean, I'm a huge fan of natural light, so I always meet that one, sound test. And then you're pretty much good to go, to be honest.
But there's less criteria to move.
Criteria. If you don't have enough windows, usually what we'll do is we'll put a full planning application first for the additional windows. Once we get that, then we'll go under PD.
Yes.
And so it's a much smoother option. Plus, I have a lot of, I adore floor plans, so I get to design them in a great way. Whereas HMOs are more common, my bread and butter, and we just rinse them out over and over again. But if I had to pick, I'd say commercial to residential.
Yeah. And what is it, because I see when it comes to designing and creating these things and resolving problems, it just kind of lights you up. What is it about property that fascinates you in this way?
I'm somebody who's very creative and I love problem solving. I'd love to take something and create something unorthodox with it.
Yeah.
And I like to challenge myself and say, can I do something that nobody else could do with this?
Yes.
And I sit with my iPad at home sometimes in the evenings and just kind of go to town with them. I'm somebody who was traditionally an artist, actually. Okay. So I did art when I was at school, and my mom was an architect.
Yes.
So growing up, we'd walk into a property and she'd always point out things that usually you might not notice. So I grew up kind of going to a property and just mentally dividing the space or wondering how I could improve it. And then I just took that forward into what I do now.
Fantastic. And what do you see as the future holding for you in the longer term? Where would you like to take this business?
Well, I'd like to continue to do what I'm doing, which is to develop properties and grow a portfolio. But I'd also love to see more people like me in the industry, and I don't see a lot of them. So I'm Arab girl, and in a lot of the circles, I don't actually mingle with a lot of them.
Yes.
I'm Muslim, and we're quite a minority from what I can see in the industry. So I'd love to see more people out there. And just to create a space for more young Arab, Muslim, Asians to get involved in property, because it really is a great industry to get part of.
Absolutely. And being involved in property, just under 2 decades now, and I've seen it evolve hugely, and there's a lot more younger people involved, a lot more females involved now than there were at the early days when I started, because mostly were men, middle-aged men that were involved in big property.
You guys gave us a bad name.
But it shows that, there's so many possibilities and so many different things you can do in property. And as people become more aware, you're getting more and more people getting involved, which I think is great.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So, Mariam, this has been a thrilling conversation, and we can talk about so many more things as well that you're involved in, that you're doing. What's the best way for somebody to reach out to you and connect with you if they want to speak to you?
So I'm active on Instagram and LinkedIn.
Okay.
Those 2 places.
Yeah.
I'm at It's Mariam Radi on Instagram and just Mariam Radi on LinkedIn, and you can reach me on either.
Fantastic. We'll put both of those on the screen and also in the description as well. Mariam, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on.